Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I'd like to share with you guys my top 10 picks for the very best EDC pocket knives that you could possibly start out with. If you're new to the knife world, you're probably thinking, wow, this is kind of overwhelming. There's a lot of stuff out there. Some of it's very expensive. Some of it's very inexpensive. You have opinions flying all over the place. I just want a good pocket knife to start out with. I hear you. This is a question that gets asked a lot in my comment section. So I wanted to update this video and share with you guys my thoughts. Everything I'm going to show today is available and it's linked right down in the description. So you can check it out if you'd like to. Also, these knives range anywhere from about $30 to about $80, so nothing is super expensive, but it's not necessarily about it being a budget knife. These are knives that are wildly popular and for good reason. Generally hailed as really, really good starter knives. These can also be like kind of one and done knives. So if you're just looking for a good pocket knife and you don't know where to start, I'm going to give you 10 different options today. Thanks so much to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's start off here with a classic. This is going to be an obvious choice for people who are very familiar with the knife world, and that's going to be the Ontario Rat Model 2 and the Ontario Rat Model 1. These have been classics for a very long time. They are wonderful EDC knives. You can get it in a smaller or larger size. You also have tip up, tip down, left or right-handed carry options, which is great. Obviously, we want to, consider left-handed people as well. They're very easy to manipulate. These run on, they have nylon inside of the pivot, but it's really, really good for keeping debris out of the pivot. So if you're really going to take a knife out and beat on it, there's a reason that these have been recommended by channels like mine for well over a decade. These are incredibly popular knives, incredibly durable knives for what you would reasonably use them for. Very easy to manipulate. Just a really, really good example of, an everyday carry pocket knife that's going to get used as a tool. Moving on here, a knife that is so popular you can't throw a rock in any direction on the knife world section of the internet without hitting it, and that's the Civivi Elementum. This thing has been popular for a very, very long time, and for good reason. It's a good size, it's got good ergonomics, it uses a button lock in order to release the blade from the open position and, of course, lock it out in the open position. Very, very easy to manipulate. Just a good generic size. Nothing too spicy here, but it's been a go-to for people who are, collectors, enthusiasts even, and just mainly people who take their knives out and use them, right? Not necessarily for anything absolutely insane, but just your generic day-to-day stuff. It's got a good grind. It's got a good blade length, not too big, not too small. It's just kind of the right size of knife for a lot of people, and that's really it. There's nothing special about this knife outside of the fact that it just meets the criteria for a lot of different types of people. That's really the name of the game for a lot of the knives on this list, right? They're all kind of in that same, preferred category. Moving on here, we have the Knafs Lander. Now, not only is this a good option, just considering the size, ergonomic profile, positions for the pocket clip, left and right hand carry, right? All of that is great. But the cool thing about the Lander is it's probably, arguably, the most customizable knife on the list. If you're somebody who, wants to start out with a good knife, but you also like to, maybe dress it up and switch the scales out every now and then, they have an absolutely massive variety of different scales, and they're all very inexpensive. So, if you're looking at, pages that like to customize knives, and you're like, that looks really, really cool, but a lot of this stuff is hyper expensive, and the scales are also ridiculously expensive. I'd love to do that, but I just don't have the funds to do it. This is the answer. This is the least expensive, most customizable knife on the market, and it also just happens to be a really good generic EDC knife. Can't recommend this one enough. Moving on here, another absolute classic, and I believe the least expensive on the list, and that's going to be the QSP Penguin. Now, I know the version I have out here is more expensive, but the base version of this knife comes in D2 and micarta, and I believe is still $32. Arguably the best dollar for dollar, absolute budget knife on the market. Very straightforward. This one's a frame lock. The base version is a liner lock, which I honestly think is a little bit better, truthfully. Blade profile is wonderful. The blade steel D2, perfectly acceptable at the $32 $32 mark. The micarta honestly feels really, really good. And the base versions of these knives, honestly, truthfully, operate better in my opinion and feel a little bit more organic or natural feeling than some of the more expensive ones. I truthfully prefer the less expensive versions of these knives, and you have a massive number of choices, which is another great thing. You know, when you're starting out and there's so many options. It can be, I get it. It can be so absolutely overwhelming, right? So getting it down to the knife that you want and then just choosing the color setup is a much more comfortable setting. One that I know that a lot of people watching this video will appreciate. So when it comes down to it, that's something that's really, really great about the QSP Penguin. It's a good knife. You just choose the color and configuration you want, and you're pretty much good to go. Moving on here, another ridiculously popular button lock, kind of like the button lock. This is like the flagship button lock knife of the world, and that's the CJRB Pyrite. These do also come in premium variations. They come in your G10 and micarta configurations. Both of these are steel. Basically, just choose a blade shape, the drop point, or I think they call this like a reverse tanto or something. Whatever you want to call it, doesn't really matter. Whatever your preferred method of deployment is, whether it is a thumb stud or sort of the opening hole. Again, these are going to be knives that are ambidextrous, despite the fact that the button lock is set up for what most people would call a right-handed, you know, it's like they call it a right-handed button lock. The only difference is when you're left-handed, you're going to be operating the lock with your index finger, which is arguably easier. So again, lefties, welcome here. Great overall size, great overall fit and finish, absolutely fantastic price tag, and the cutting geometry of both blades is wonderful. And again, you have a ton of options. That really makes it super duper easy. Just pick the color you want, right? I keep saying that, but I know that that's going to be a big relief to a lot of people, just being able to narrow it down to the knife they want and then pick the color. It's really great. You can pick pretty much any color combination you could imagine. I mean, they really do have that many options. It's just a really, really fantastic EDC knife. And honestly, the steel ones, they're a little heavier, but if you're somebody who just likes a little bit more heft in your knife, pick the all steel ones because they're fantastic. Moving on here, an option for people who want a smaller knife. This is undeniably, in my opinion, this is the best small starter pocket knife on the market, and that's the Civivi Baby Banter. Still the knife that I take with me when I'm traveling from state to state here in the United States, and that's because I don't want to have to worry about the different laws and I just don't even want to have to think about it. The Baby Banter, as far as I know, is legal everywhere in the United States. Now, if you live outside the United States, I don't know, but I just don't have to worry about it. It's got thumb studs in a great place. It's got a nice choke up spot, which for me is a big deal because I like to be able to get basically a full grip on my knife if I want to. But it's one of the only super small knives out there that's actually pretty easy to manipulate. Something that I find a little bit awkward with little tiny knives is how they don't want to operate the way that a larger knife does. It doesn't feel quite as organic or easy to manipulate. This is just a liner lock with a couple of thumb studs. This is, by the way, a Ben Peterson design again. Something that I love is the size of the thumb studs and the shape. It's very similar to the Ontario Rat, that sort of domed off thumb stud, and that makes it very, very easy to manipulate. I also like the pocket clip, and I like that you can mount it for right or left-handed carry, making it, once again, a knife that is suitable for, you know, left-handed, right-handed, or ambidextrous people. It's just a really, really good option if you're looking for something that is small, and honestly, I don't think there's a better option out there for a small knife, at least in terms of manipulation and overall comfort. Moving on here, perhaps a lot of people would call this the best overall, like if you reduce the value to the materials used to create the knife, a lot of people might consider this to be dollar for dollar the best knife of all time. And I can't say that they're totally wrong. This is the Migron Velona. This is the 3.5-inch version, and then the big boy. Originally, all that was available was the large one. And this is a crazy nice knife. I mean, if you've handled a few budget knives here or there, you know, and you kind of have an idea of what to expect at a certain price point, if you handle the Velona, you'll be like, this thing has got to be way over $100. No, it's just made ridiculously well. Currently, these are being offered in the large version with a full choil or not a full choil in 14C28N, satin finished, very beautiful satin polish there, or a black or gray PVD with various options for the scales. If you really like the big one, go for the big one. It's beautiful, and both of them come with titanium pocket clips, which is absolutely wild. You definitely don't get titanium pocket clips normally at this price point. So that's really, really impressive. But if I didn't say 14C28N, which if you didn't know is widely considered to be the best all-around steel that you can get in the budget territory, and by budget I mean under $75, it really is a very, very well-rounded steel and absolutely suitable for this price point. The blade is very easy to manipulate, uses a flipper tab. You can also use this fuller to reverse flick, and if you don't ever do the reverse flick or you've never done it and you want to learn, this is a great knife to learn on because the fuller is the entire length of the blade, meaning wherever your fingers naturally land, you can sort of use that area to reverse flick it out, or you can just ignore that and use the flipper tab because it works really, really well. When only the large one was available, the only issue with this knife was people who want a smaller version of the knife didn't have an option because they didn't make a smaller version. Well, now they do. They make a nearly perfectly sized version of this knife for just general carry for the average person who doesn't need a folder that's over 9 inches. Both of these come in at a wonderful price tag. You will not be disappointed with these. The quality of them is absolutely off the charts. Migron is doing such a good job. And lefties, you can enjoy this because look, they've milled out holes for left-handed carry, which is just wonderful. Moving on here, another option from Migron, and honestly, my favorite, this is going to be the Migron Moyarl. This one is going to be the ergonomic champion of the bunch. The handle scales, whether you go with the liner lock version, which we'll talk about the differences here, but they have a liner lock version, they have a crossbar lock version, which is really great, right? Depending on how you like to manipulate your knives, there's pros and cons to both. But the blade profile, the option to open the knife and the position of it, and just the general ergonomic profile are so wonderful. If ergonomic comfort is a big key for you, these knives are fantastic. And because they are Migron, you're going to get a titanium pocket clip once again. You're also going to get either coated or uncoated 14C28N, which is another huge bonus. The crossbar lock, the benefit there is being able to sort of actuate it on either side. The downside, though, and this is a curious one, is that on the ambidextrous locking version of this knife, unless they've recently changed it, they don't offer an option for left-handed pocket clip mounting. However, on the liner lock version, which is a right-handed liner lock, they do offer holes so that you can mount the pocket clip for left-handed carry. So if you're left-handed and you want to carry this thing properly, you should probably go with a liner lock version, right? But if you're right-handed, choose either one, whichever one fits. Hopefully, in the future, Migron comes to their senses and mills out the holes on the crossbar lock version, which is, again, the ambidextrous locking system of the bunch. But if you're left-handed, just like you saw here, the right-handed liner lock is honestly pretty easy to manipulate. The muscle in this finger is not nearly as worked out, but it's still very, very easy to actuate, engage, and disengage. Sorry, there's a hair of some sort on there. But yeah, absolutely fantastic price tag. Really, really great stuff. Moving on here, one that I've got a screen recording of because I don't have this model with me currently, but I have reviewed it, and that's going to be the Vosteed Raccoon. This is the fully ambidextrous option for the crossbar lock. This does have mounting positions for left and right hand carry, has the crossbar lock, utilizes 14C28N, and is one of the better ergonomic choices of the bunch. Again, there's just a lot of different check boxes for this knife. This is one of the most accommodating knives on the list. Very, very good build quality, and I love the crossbar lock version of this knife because I find the crossbar lock to be across the board, but in Vosteed's case, absolutely. But generally speaking, across the board, I find the crossbar lock to be a much more reliable locking system in terms of, solidity and not accidental disengagement. This has a wonderful blade profile. It's got a wonderful size. It's very easy to manipulate. It's just a really good knife all the way around. And there's a bunch of different options for it. You don't have to settle for whatever color you're looking at here. I can't remember which version of it I reviewed, but you have a ton of different options. And again, it's got a really, really good price tag and a solid build quality. And then finally, this is a knife that shows up on lots of different lists, but truthfully, I think it's one of the best dollar for dollar knives out there and will set an incredibly high standard for you if you're just starting off in the pocket knife world. And honestly, this knife ruins a lot of other potential choices for a lot of people because it's just too good. And that's going to be the Civivi and Civivi Vision FG. And I know regular viewers of my channel are rolling their eyes like, oh my God, he cannot shut up about this knife. We get it. It's his favorite knife ever. This knife really is one of the best pocket knives that's ever been made. I cannot believe Civivi and Civivi decided to put the super lock on a very near budget knife. It is the most expensive knife on this list, but very close to what I consider to be the budget territory, which is $75. This is a $78 knife and is worth every penny. Not only is this knife completely and totally ambidextrous and able to be manipulated right or left-handed, it's an incredibly strong locking system. It is unbelievably easy to use, very fun, very fidgety. Not just a toy, but something that's actually useful, something that's actually, you know, making your life easier by carrying it. It's really great. And fortunately, they had the sense to offer mounting positions for left and right-handed people. Some people don't like the speed holes, and I have a feeling there are many companies creating aftermarket scales that are scrambling to put together some really, really great stuff for this knife. But honestly, any version of this knife that you pick up, whether it be the Ultim, I know not a lot of people like Ultim, that's fine. They make it in a wide variety of different colors, G10 and micarta, et cetera, et cetera. Whatever version of it you pick up, this is just an absurdly good knife. On top of that, being able to choke up right behind the blade in some situations is also really great. And because this is this style of blade shape, getting your finger up here and doing draw cuts while still maintaining the ability to slice, because we do have curvature and belly in here, makes this, God, one of the most versatile knives on the market. It really is crazy that Civivi and Civivi decided to make this. It is so stupidly good that honestly, any of the knives on this list that you choose would be excellent. But it's, you know, if you choose this one, if you pick this one up, there's hardly a reason to ever pick up a different pocket knife, right? But the irony is that picking up something like this will almost inevitably turn you into an enthusiast that's interested in all sorts of different pocket knives. So welcome to the knife world. I hope you found something that piques your interest, something great you can start out with. The knife world is a really, really great place, whether you pick up one knife and use it forever, or you pick up 1,000 different knives and you enjoy them all for different reasons. So anyways, that's going to be pretty much it today, guys. Like I said, links for everything you saw today down in the description. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.